energy flow. So energy from the sun is what most ecosystems rely on as an energy source. And autotrophs tend to utilise the energy from the sun as well as CO2 from the atmosphere and H2O to complete the process known as photosynthesis, where they trap light and use it to form carbon compounds like glucose. Okay. They then are broken down in the process of feeding, so this passes on energy. By feeding. And you can see that, or you can demonstrate that through food chains. So you've got your producer, and then you have your primary consumer, and this little fish, and then you have your sharky type thing as your secondary consumer. Okay, these arrows represent energy, the energy flow. Okay, so as we said, sunlight is the main source of energy for most food chains. Okay, so these carbon compounds, feeding, what happens during feeding is these carbon compounds are broken down. By the process of respiration. And this happens within cells, and what it does is it releases energy. It releases the energy that's been trapped within the carbon compounds during photosynthesis. And what that results in is some warmth. Now, animals can't transfer, they cannot convert heat energy into other sorts of energy. Okay, so those are then lost to the environment. Okay. Okay, so last thing I want to talk to you about, when we're talking about these food chains, so for an example, if we're talking about, say an oak tree, this is the producer, And we might have some leaf miners. These are really tiny little bug things like this that live inside of the leaves on a tree. And these are the primary consumers. And they might be eaten by blue tits, which are little dicky birds, which you can obviously see from that. So that's our secondary consumer. And finally, that might be eaten by a sparrowhawk. So let's make him look a bit angry. Hooked beak. Big claws. Evil. Right, and here's our tertiary consumer. Okay, now we talked about the energy being lost to the environment. So at each stage, some of the energy is lost. It might be excreted, or it could be lost through heat, waste, through respiration. Okay, the way we can represent this are through pyramids of biomass. Pyramids of biomass should always be drawn to scale, so really you should be using a ruler to measure these because they should be accurate. Okay, now in this example, our producer is always at the bottom layer, so this is the tree, and we're looking at the mass of the tree. Then the leaf miners. Now the amount of difference here equals the energy lost at this stage. Okay, and then we've got the blue tit, and then we have our sparrowhawk at the top as our tertiary consumer and top predator. So as we're going up, you can see that the energy levels are going down. Okay, so there are less organisms as you go along the food chain. Okay, so let's just make that clear. So this energy is wasted, usually through heat, through respiration, but also through excretion. And as a result, you go up the food chain or along the food chain, you're going to have less organisms due to less energy. Okay, and it's for this reason that usually you're not going to get a food chain much longer than 4, because the energy levels reduce at each stage. So due to diminishing energy. Okay. Now, at the start, we talked about the sun being a continuous but variable energy source. Now, plants can't just live on photosynthesis. They need other things to create these complex carbon compounds. Okay, and the nutrients that they use, they are finite, they are limited. So the abiotic nutrients in an ecosystem are finite and limited. Okay, and that can impact the amount of growth can occur in the autotrophs.